Okay, we're going to do the Chapter 15 review for our test on Friday. Let me get this up to the right size. All right. Okay, we all received this. My classes received this either Tuesday or Wednesday in class when we were doing ISEP testing. I think Mrs. Minarsek students are receiving it Thursday, but we wanted to make sure you had all the correct answers, so you were studying the right material for the exam on Friday. So let's start off with World War I. Three causes of World War I. As you guys know, we've talked about this quite a bit. Was nationalism was one. ALISM. Our second thing would be alliances. ALLIANCES. And the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand. DINAND. Nationalism was that feeling that your country was better than everybody else's, which created a lot of tension in Europe in the early 1900s. Alliances, we talked about the Triple Entente and the Triple Alliance. Those countries that had formed this bond and agreed to fight for each other or fight with each other if it would come to war in Europe. And the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand is what really set the war off. We've talked about the Serbian assassin who shot Archduke Ferdinand, who was supposed to be the next emperor of the Austria-Hungary Empire. So Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Serbia had an alliance with Russia. Russia had an alliance as part of the Triple Entente with France and Great Britain. So all of those countries joined in the war. Austria-Hungary was in the Triple Alliance with Germany and Italy, so that brought them into the war. And before you knew it, a war that should have been between two countries boiled into a war that pretty much everybody in Europe was involved in. World War I saw a number of new strategies used in warfare, such as zigzag trenches for trench warfare. Which really slowed down the fighting of World War II. Europe was used to wars that went relatively quickly, but trench warfare really bogged things down. New weapons, and there's a lot of things that you could put here, but tanks would be one. Planes, airplanes were used for the first time in warfare during World War I. Grenades were invented during World War I. The machine gun was invented during World War I. Lots of different things. Submarines were invented, which led to a 3-year-long stalemate, which basically meant nobody was winning. The war was kind of at a standstill or a tie. But then the United States got involved in World War I and ended the tie after Germany attacked their supply ships. The United States wasn't involved in World War I originally, but they were sending supplies to Great Britain, who they were allies with. Germany started sending their submarines, their U-boats, to attack the American supply ships, and the United States, after warning Germany to stop, and Germany didn't stop, the United States then entered the war on the side of the Allies. Okay, and once the United States did enter the war quickly came to an end. And at the Treaty of Versailles, the Triple Entente countries forced Germany to take responsibility for World War I. The American president, Woodrow Wilson, if you remember, was really against Germany being punished too severely because he thought there might be some backlash, that Germany might strike back later. But the European leaders of the Triple Entente really wanted to see Germany take all the blame for the war, pay billions of dollars in damages, that Germany was told they had to reduce the size of their army. So that's what happened at the Treaty of Versailles. A new form of government called communism appeared in Russia after World War I, and this is going to change politics in the world quite a bit from that point on. The United States helped Europe rebuild until the stock market crash. Stock market crash in 1929, which led to the Great Depression. And there was no longer money for recovery. The United States went through a severe economic downturn in 1929 when the stock market crashed. People were losing their homes, losing their jobs. And there was just no money for the American government or American businessmen to send to Europe. Because of this, in Europe, dictators or totalitarian leaders, people that have total control over the country, started to come to power, like Adolf Hitler in Germany and Mussolini in Italy. Came to power when people of Europe turned to strong men to save their countries. Both Hitler and Mussolini really jumped aboard the idea of nationalism. Sorry, that's the handwriting so poor on that. But they really jumped on the idea of nationalism and convinced their people of Germany, the people of Italy, that it was important to regain their former glory, no matter what happened. These dictators started a war with invasions in Ethiopia. Italy invaded Ethiopia, and Germany actually invaded quite a few countries. They started with the invasion of Czechoslovakia and Austria, but it was when they invaded Poland that the other countries of Europe finally took notice, and Great Britain and France finally declared war on Germany because they realized Germany wasn't going to stop. Okay, and by the way, obviously, since you're watching this video, you can stop it, slow it down, so that you can get all the answers. Obviously, you don't have to keep up with me. Don't forget to hit the pause button and write things down to make sure that you have them. The German dictator showed that he was a fascist, which meant he could do anything to save his country, even kill people. So let's see, fascist. Remember, fascism is when leaders say that the needs of the country come before the needs of the people or the individual rights of people. That anything that's good for the country is worth doing. So, in Hitler's case, even the Holocaust would be an example of how he was a fascist leader, because he basically said, for the good of the German people, all the Jewish people in Germany and eventually all the Jewish people in Europe needed to be exterminated or killed. World War II was divided into two sides. The Allies, which was Great Britain, France, and eventually the United States, and the Axis powers. And the Axis powers were Hitler's Germany, Mussolini's Italy, and Japan. The USA joined World War II after Japan bombed ships in Pearl Harbor, which was the U.S. naval base in Hawaii. And then in June of 1944, a very important event takes place during World War II, one of the more famous battles, called D-Day, which was also known by the codename Operation Overlord, where the Allied forces gathered in England and came across the English Channel, landed on the beaches of Normandy in northern France. France was occupied by Germany at the time, so this allowed the Allied forces, once they fought their way through the beachhead in Normandy and got into France, it allowed them to gain traction in France and eventually drive the Germans out of France and gave them a door to enter Germany itself. Okay, so once again we see that the United States, after joining the war, just like in World War I, when the United States joined the war in World War II, it sped the war up quite a bit, and the Allies gained the advantage, and once again the Allies emerged victorious. Now, following World War II, two superpowers emerged: the United States and the Soviet Union. After the Russian Revolution, sorry about that. It's just S-O-V-I-E-T, my bad. The Soviet Union. But the United States and the Soviet Union, which used to be Russia, but after the Russian Revolution, this communist Soviet Union arose, pretty much divided Europe in half, the East and the West. And Eastern Europe sided pretty much with the Soviets, and many of those countries were communist, and Western Europe was democratic and sided with the United States. The country of Germany And in particular, the city of Berlin was literally divided by the Berlin Wall. Germany after World War One, or excuse me, after World War II, was split into two parts: Western Germany, which the Allied forces controlled and helped become democratic, and Eastern Germany, which the Soviet Union controlled and turned into a communist country. Okay, this led to a great deal of tension and competition between these halves, known as the Cold War. Although there were no battles or weapons, it wasn't really a war. It was a war of intimidation and threats. The goal of the the goal of the space race was to send a man to the moon. The Soviet Union and the United States were in quite a competition to see who could get a man on the moon first, which of course the United States won. And then we also had the arms race, which was the more frightening of the two, where both the United States and the Soviet Union worked very hard to develop the strongest militaries, develop the most nuclear weapons, and again, it all fed into that battle for superiority and the threats that happened throughout the Cold War. Also, following World War II, the United Nations was formed with its goal to preserve peace throughout the world. They give humanitarian aid throughout the world when there's a tragedy somewhere or a natural disaster, like the earthquake in Haiti a few years ago. The UN sent medicine, doctors, food to the people of Haiti. And then finally, your last question here. Europe began an attempt at cooperation with the strengthening of the EU, which stands for the European Union, which instituted a common monetary unit, the euro. And the euro was a type of money that you can use through many countries of Europe instead of having to trade one type of money for another. Okay, this wraps up our Chapter 15 review sheet. Now you should make sure, or you should be able to be sure that you have all the correct answers so you can study properly for Friday's test. Also, make sure you study the Chapter 15 close that we did earlier in the week and went over in class, because it again reviews all the key important points that we'll be having on the test.